Vietnam, one of the bloodiest wars in human history, where some battles were fought not with bullets, but with chemicals. One chemical that impacted Jacob Singer when he returned home was nightmare fuel. It's often said that in the aftermath of war, soldiers battle with demons. But for Jacob and his squad mates, why is that literal? If you'd like to know more, follow me as I dissect 1990s Jacob's Ladder. The film opens by immediately transporting us into the heart of the Vietnam War, where we meet Jacob, played by Tim Robbins, and his squad, including Ving Rhames. We are in the Mekong Delta, having a laugh, really light-hearted, before an immediate sharp turn into darkness. The soldiers suddenly come under attack, but crumble with no visible reason as to why. It's a combination of seizures, spitting up blood, and enhanced delirium. What has caused an entire group of men to lose their composure so violently? We find this out in the third act of the film, but there's a fair amount of fuel to discuss before then. First, I'm going to break down exactly what Jacob and other members of his team experience after returning home from the war. We do see that Jacob was severely injured in Vietnam, stabbed by a bayonet, and throughout the film we get flashbacks to when he was found and ended up on the surgeon's table. But the primary focus of the film is the world Jacob inhabits after the stabbing. He's living in Brooklyn, New York with his girlfriend Jezebel quite some time after he separated from his family, though he does reminisce about his family, including his children, his youngest played by Macaulay Culkin, who we discover later on was killed in a car accident. But there's something extremely off-kilter about the New York Jacob lives in. We get an impression of that from our very first scene here. Jacob is on a decrepit subway train, and as he looks at a homeless person, he catches a glimpse of what resembles a tentacle. Yeah, this isn't normal. Even the exit to the train station is locked. That's not normal either. It's a really great scene for tension build-up because it presents you with these small hints that the world around Jacob contains inexplicable dangers. All this comes to a frightening climax when Jacob, who resorts to walking down the damp tracks, is nearly hit by an oncoming train. However, take a look at those windows as the train passes. Visible yet blurred shadowy beings stare out every window, including one pale-faced entity who gazes out the back of the train. The naked eye can't make out definitively what they are, but they're digestible enough to know that they're anthropomorphic. It's these freakish presences which continue to stalk Jacob throughout the film in unpredictable places, gradually closing in on him. Quick segue, something we are closing in on is 35,000 subscribers, and we'd love you to provide some dream fuel for us by helping us reach that goal. Thanks in advance. Back to the demonic figures, we get further appearances when Jacob is chased down by a car, which he narrowly avoids, but this thing eyes him up as it passes? How's that for a shot to keep you up at night? Christ! Later at a party, Jacob sees multiple demons in the apartment. This includes the iconic vibrating demon, which was achieved by the actor shaking his head without moving his body at a very low frame rate, then speeding up the footage. The effect is pretty bloody horrific if you ask me, and it's one of the film's most famous creative decisions. As the party lights distort the room and Jezebel is encapsulated by a scorpion-like monster, which we only get rapid flashes of, Jacob collapses in a state of sheer panic. It's a truly bizarre scene, this one, as all of these uncomfortable sights are accompanied by upbeat pop music. You could argue this detracts from the fear factor of the imagery, but I think it makes the scene strikingly imbalanced in tone. Not in a negative way though, it kind of makes it more memorable and peculiar to me. After Jacob's collapse, he falls ill with a skyrocketing temperature, and he's put into an ice bath, surrounded by strangers adding more and more ice as Jacob pleads in pain. The direction of this was really chilling, pardon the pun, with Tim Robbins just rupturing the sound of the scene with his begging. Thankfully, it's enough to pull him round, and soon after, he meets up with one of his old friends from Nam, Paul. Paul himself has a scattered brain, saying that he is being pursued by things. things which come out of the walls. He's also adamant that he's going to hell. We know that Jacob has experienced similar, so the common thread of both being in the same squad is interesting. After Paul dies when his car randomly explodes, the rest of the surviving soldiers meet up at his wake, and to discuss being psychologically disturbed from whatever happened during the war. Here, the common thread elongates. Why are all these men seeing these things? They believe it must be something to do with the military and want to investigate, seeking legal representation in the form of Jason Alexander. This is the point of the film where the flavour of Nightmare Fuel changes. Prior to this, it's been microdoses of supernatural visions which have kept the engine running. However, when the lawyer drops the case after finding out that none of the men were ever in Vietnam, another angle is created, and it tastes like conspiracy. The American government has seemingly altered the records of an entire group of men in order to safeguard themselves. They've recorded that these soldiers were discharged on psychological grounds after a stint in Thailand. Now, I will say this narrative movement is really clever because it makes you question what you've seen in the film and the sanity of Jacob and the squad. Has all this just been a fantasy they've created in their minds? What's real and what isn't? But this idea is cut short when Jacob is picked up by men in black suits, saying he's talking too much. The indication here is that Jacob is legitimately onto exposing something which the government wants to be kept hidden away, shrouded by the veil of a lie. He's sought after by representatives of the higher powers, also this investigation can cease. Thankfully, Jacob is able to escape the vehicle, but is severely injured, requiring medical attention. However, we the audience receive anything but the salvation Jacob needs. Instead of life-saving hands reaching out for him, Jacob plummets into the grip of not only the most famous segment of the film, but one of the most famous scenes in the entire horror genre. Jacob's stretcher is pushed into an unlit, desolate room. Clearly not a hospital. The stretcher is progressively pushed through an asylum-like facility. Dirty, stained tiles, blood and body parts covering the floor and the walls, disfigured inmates crawling across the grated roof, and we get another appearance of the vibrating demon. This comes totally out of left field and is levels above any other administration of Nightmare Fuel in the film. This is a full transfusion, and it only gets worse when Jacob's head is screwed into apparatus and an eyeless beast plunges a needle into his forehead. It's no wonder why this scene is brought up frequently in scariest scenes lists. Anyway, after that freaky sidestep, it's time to continue on the point of the government's fear factor in relation to the plot. Jacob links up with a man named Michael Newman, a chemist who claims to know why he's seeing these visions. In a haunting explanation, Michael says that he was employed to create a chemical that could tap into the primal rage of the infantry. This chemical, dubbed the ladder, as it sends its user down the ladder deep inside their inner animal, was pushed into Jacob's squad through the food supply. However, the ladder wasn't as sturdy as it was set up, as the entire squad ripped each other apart. Even Jacob being stabbed in the intro wasn't the Viet Cong, it was a friendly. To me, this is the real raw Nightmare Fuel of the film. The concept of the powers that be distributing an experimental rage drug into the men fighting for their country is made all the more unsettling with the film's final statement. Claims of a hallucinogenic named BZ being pushed into US soldiers during Vietnam were denied by the Pentagon. But then again, why would the Pentagon admit to such an atrocity? It's an eye-opening statement which lingers rife in the air after the film concludes. Whatever happened in the real world, Jacob's world becomes hell as a lasting side effect of the ladder, something which is hinted at on the subway train with the billboard that reads, "Hell, that's what life can be doing drugs." A nice piece of foreshadowing there, and there's a couple of these anti-drug ads scattered throughout the film. In fact, we get multiple similar hints as to where the film ultimately ends, which I'll cover in just a moment after wrapping up the plot. Come the end of the film, it turns out Jacob died in Vietnam Vietnam from his wound on the operating table. The entire film has been what he's lived in his mind as his body shuts down. This completely rewrites the movie, but as aforementioned, we were always guided towards this revelation. At the party, Jacob has his palm read, where the reader concludes that his hand says he's dead already. In the demon surgery room, Jacob is told he's already been killed. Even the colour palette of New York is washed out, dull and lifeless. The only notable colour in the film comes from prior to Jacob's death with the greenery of Vietnam, and when he joins his dead son Gabe, ascending the staircase to a golden afterlife. So it's as though the world he's inhabited, as his body is dying, has been this faded limbo, trying to cling on to the colour of life. Throughout the film, there are even some literary references which link directly to its themes. The title itself, Jacob's Ladder, here twisted to refer to the ladder chemical and its influence on Jacob, is actually a biblical reference. In Genesis, Jacob had a dream in which he saw a ladder leading to heaven, which here is represented by the stairs Jacob walks up towards Gabe as he passes away. The biblical Jacob saw angels walking up and down the ladder, and this ties into a quote given by the lawyer. The quote is from Meister Eckhart, who claimed to have seen hell. Eckhart said, "The only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of life. Your memories, your attachments. They burn them all away. But they're not punishing you. They're freeing your soul. So if you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels, freeing you from the earth." If we tie this quote into Jacob's experiences, the devils he sees, and the memories of both his family and of Vietnam, then the devils appear because Jacob is holding on for life. As soon as he accepts his fate and passes away, it's because the devils guided him towards that acceptance. All the nightmarish demons that have messed with our minds throughout the film may very well be angels, passing Jacob by on the ladder, attempting to incite the peace of death. These references can be interpreted to make the film's themes go deeper than even the ladder can reach. All in all, this 1990s psychological war movie has left a lasting impression on its witnesses. Powered by hybrid nightmare fuel, Jacob's Ladder taps into shocking imagery, the corruption of power within governments, conspiracies and cover-ups, plus the rotten cherry on the cake, one of horror's all-time creepiest scenes. These ingredients are what firmly nail Jacob's Ladder onto our Nightmare Fuel Hall of Fame. Do you agree with this decision? Let us know in the comments your thoughts on Jacob's Ladder. I've been Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and wherever we next meet, I'll be waiting in the shadows with another dose of Nightmare Fuel.